Well, welcome back to my second lecture. This will be fourth lecture of Friday, October 21st. We've got another great one coming up from Terry shortly, then a panel discussion. Again, just a quick note, as we go, each of us, Terry and I, go through our presentations, if you have anything you'd like us to talk about or address in the panel discussion, we got a blank slate. We've got some questions, and those of you who were here with us yesterday, we've got some questions ready to go, but quite honestly, we'd rather look at your questions and respond to them. So any questions you have, any information, just let her go. My disclosures haven't changed in the last hour. My providing the honorarium to support these hasn't changed in the last hour, unless my wife made a change, wrote a check to somebody different. So let's look, what's on the C-suite's place? And Al mentioned that we're both members of the American College of Healthcare Executives. And I was fortunate to be able to pass the boards for my fellowship, which, by the way, at the time were a written and oral exam, not unlike the MBRC registry exam that a number of us took back in the day. It's now just a computerized exam in order to get your fellowship. So here's a bubble chart. Here is what's going through executives' heads from interoperability, all the EMR stuff, ransomware. That wasn't even a word a decade ago. Hospitals are spending gazillions of dollars with companies to prevent them being victims of ransomware, which can just shut down the hospital, may even shut down critical care equipment. So again, not in a particular order, but the bubbles, the size of the bubbles are the result of the responses. So if you look at that, AI is the smallest bubble. It's in the future, but it's not on the front burner. Provider communications, Medicaid, rev cycle, ransomware, interoperability, value-based reimbursement. If you'd have taken this chart back 10 years for telehealth, it wouldn't have been on the slide at all. Now it's been growing, and I suspect it's going to continue to grow, just my opinion. When I was growing up as a therapist, I'll call that the past, the 70s and into the 80s. And here's some words that describe how things worked in the day. We didn't know what things cost. Unless you were the manager, I didn't know what a cannula cost or nebulizer cost or ventilator cost. I just wanted to know that the boss had enough that we could keep the closet stocked. Provider focus, meaning focusing on us, not the patient. Inpatient focused, why? We got paid. It was a fee-for-service world. The more services that were done, the longer a patient stayed in the hospital, the higher the reimbursement. I'm going to pause. I never want someone to think that hospitals and doctors and therapists and nurses did things just because we got reimbursed. That would be unethical. And I don't think we did. But the focus was on maximizing reimbursement and less so on looking at reducing waste. Why did that change? DRG's 1984 for Medicare, and by the early 1990s, Medicaid, and also commercial payers. Silos, we had departments. When we had our management meeting, I, as a respiratory therapy manager, I was held accountable for what we spent. And if we moved from one medication that used to be in the RT budget and now is in the pharmacy budget, and we have one of those today with our pulmonary hypertension drugs, if it was out of mine into theirs, I would look good. And that's just not right. We should look at the roll-up cost of that. Patients were passive. They were the recipients of their care. Certainly worthy. I don't think we ever treated anyone based upon they're the head in the bed, but they didn't have an active role. Fee-for-service, in those days, if you did one blood gas, you got paid X, or the hospital got reimbursed X. If you got 10, it was 10X. It was based on volume. I remember our productivity metrics were what was the average occupancy. 350-bed hospital, the more beds we had filled, the better was the finance for the organization. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that that was the world in which we lived in. Hospitals were standalone. Back in the early 1980s, there were about 7,000 hospitals. And with the exception of academic medical centers and a few systems, the vast majority were standalones. I remember Philadelphia had 78 separate individual standalone hospitals. Now they have maybe 3 systems, maybe a couple standalones there. So what's the present? The present is managing chronic disease, not treating when they're sick. Yes, we do, but manage the disease over the continuum from the hospital to LTAC to nursing home to assisted living, wherever it might be. Cost and efficiency focus. First time a rep came in and said, I've got a better cannula. I said, look at it. And it's really soft. I said, good. I cut off the extension tubing. I wore it for 7 days. And I did. I wore 24 hours for 7 days. At the end of that week, I put on our cannula. And at the end of that week, I didn't look like the same person. I had these red marks with the old cannula versus none with the new cannula. And I went down to the director's name is Joe, true, his real name. And I said, I want this. Here's a picture. And this was a Polaroid. This is how long ago it was. It's a Polaroid picture that my wife take of me. This is why I want the soft cannula. He said, great. You don't want to ask what it costs? No. You said it's better. You showed me pictures. It's better for patients. It's better for me. Now let me pause with that. How many times do you allow, does purchasing, they're doing their job, say, hey, if you say it's better, we'll buy it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the cost. Not the case anymore. We're looking at cost. But I will say, piggybacking on my lecture I just finished, it's not what you pay at the pump. It's what you get down the road. So a soft cannula may cost a nickel more, I'm making that up. But if that doesn't put red marks on the patient's face, you don't have to worry about reporting that as a hospital-acquired condition. We're focusing on the consumer, and consumer may be a harsh word, but the consumer is the patient in the hospital, the person in the home, person in the LTAC, person in the skilled nursing facility. They consume our services. Good friend of mine, Patrick Dunn, told me a number of years ago, hey, Karen, I heard you use the word discharge. Well, what's that mean? We know, been therapists forever. We're discharge a patient. He said, I think you're missing the boat. In nicer terms than that, good friend. And he said, I think we should be thinking of terms that are transitioning. We're helping transition that patient from the hospital to the next level of care. That's a fundamental change in perspective. We're not discharging. Hey, see you, Tom. COPD patient. Might be next Tuesday, but we'll see you. Have a good day. Now we're thinking about, do they have the medications? Did they have a peak inspiratory flow rate so that they could use that DPI? Did they have the finances to afford the valve holding chamber? We're more multidisciplinary than ever, and that's a good thing. Practicing in silos by departments just wasn't good in the day and is not the way, it doesn't give us the best outcomes. EBM or evidence-based medicine or best practices. I talked about this, about using the highest level of science, and we are paid for performance. It's a whole other lecture for a whole other day, but value-based purchasing is not about cannulas and ventilator circuits. It's about hospitals being reimbursed based upon quality outcomes. And it's a significant factor, and hospitals are far more aware of that than we ever were historically. I'm going to give you probably a dozen quotes, and I don't want you to memorize them. I don't want you to buy the book, but each quote that I use is something that makes me rethink, what's my role as a leader? I may be an agency therapist. I may be a pulmonary rehab therapist. I may be a department head. Those are all positions in which you can lead. Very different job descriptions, and you lead in different ways. But Max Dupree, and actually I would recommend reading this book. The first responsibility of a leader is to find reality. The last is to say thank you. In between, the leader is a servant and a debtor. That's it. So defining reality could be, we have 10 people on the day, we had two call-offs. The reality is we got to get her done. I need somebody from nights, please stay over a few hours. Somebody from the next shift, come in a little bit hour. That's reality. You can't change reality. What you can say as a leader, again, whether you're the staff therapist, the team leader, the manager, this is what these are the cards we're dealt. What's the best we can do with it? That's an artful leader. Secondly, I'm going to give you a number of lists. These are from experience, from reading, from listening to other folks talk about leadership. And if you Google leadership, you will get gazillions. And that's the number I use when I don't know the real number. You will get gazillions of citations to talk about the 9 traits, the 8 traits, the 10 traits. A lot of this stuff is people using it to write a book. I'm going to pull out those, several of those I use from textbooks, certainly, or books. But some of these, I think we just need to sit back and say, what's our role? So in the Q&A, think about 1 or 2 of these. How could I be a team leader? I'm a pulmonary rehab therapist. I'm an educator. I'm a night shift therapist. I'm an agency therapist. I'm a shift supervisor. I'm a department head. How could I be a team player? Different than what I'm doing today. How to be enthusiastic. And this is what our leaders expect of us. Not to say, oh man, woe is me, but hey, I'm healthy enough to come to work. That puts me on second base already. Helpful, like their work, show that they like their work, be innovative, confidential, maintaining competencies, share the credit and accept the blame. Do you know people that love the limelight, like the credit? I do. I'm one of them. Do you know people that are easy, quick to say, hey, that's on me. That's where we need to be. Give the team the credit, the leader accept the blame. That makes them reliable, loyal, and high integrity, and somebody that I would follow. So think of those words. If any of them grab you, say, here's what I do in my role. Here's something I could do differently. So here's one of those top 10 lists. And I'm just going to give you some examples with these for a couple of these. Honesty, integrity. Come on. Why do we even have to have that on a list? Shouldn't we always be honest? Shouldn't we have high integrity? I have a definition. I forget where I got this from, but it said honesty and integrity are what you do when no one's looking. And that's been powerful. It's been painful for me to look in a mirror and say, I acted differently under these circumstances. And I'm here to tell you, I'm disappointed in myself when I do that. Got to look in the mirror and say, this is what I was given. This is a situation. Got to make the best of it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You say to the staff, we had a budget cut. We cannot buy that ventilator next year that we all felt we need. We're going to have to keep renting. Now, maybe we rent enough. I can then have the finance folks take another look at it. But today, we're not getting it. So confidence, being inspirational, be committed, show passion, communicator, able to make decisions even when they're difficult. Easy to say, hey, we got budget, we can buy 2 ventilators. Able to make a decision to say, we can either buy a ventilator or we can have that person on night shift that we need. That's an easy one for me. People always trump equipment. Be accountable, able to delegate and provide empowerment to others. Creative, innovation, and empathy. And empathy is not sympathy. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. So John Meacham said his list is 3. Characteristics of good leaders, they have to be curious, they have to demonstrate humility and empathy. So curiosity, it inspires us to look at what could be, not what is. That may not be this shift, that may not be this day, that may not be this month or quarter, but what could be better for patients, our staff, our hospital versus what is today. So having that innate curiosity, humility, everybody comes first, we need to back the line. I remember the days where we'd have a picture for Respiratory Care Week and I'd be there in the front row and I'm thinking, what was I doing? I'm not a leader. I wanted to be in the front row. So if you're a department head, get in the back row. If you're an administrator, get in the back row, or be the one to take the picture and don't even have your picture. Put others first. And I'm talking about us, our team, but also certainly patients. And empathy, and what John says is, allows us to listen and understand those being served. Sympathy is feeling bad about somebody in a tough situation. I'm sorry for your loss. You lost your mom or your dad. That's sympathy, and we certainly need to be sympathetic. Empathy is walking in their shoes, not thinking how we would act, but listening what is driving them to do that. One of the things, and this just came up a couple weeks ago, I was talking to an individual on a Zoom call, and this individual I've done some work with in the past, and I could just see by his or her body motions, they were just waiting to say the next thing. So I stopped for about 5 seconds, and then the person came back, listening. And I said, you know what? I do that all the time. I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, and I don't have undivided attention to you. So I'm pointing the finger at me when I say we need to be empathetic. I need to be more empathetic. I need to listen before I even start to think what I'm going to respond. Let people finish their sentence. Give it a pause and say, geez, I hadn't thought of, don't say this, but think to yourself, I had thought the issue was that they couldn't afford their Lava Llama ICS. The issue is they don't have a car. They don't have anyone that can drive them to their doctor's appointment. So listen first, pause, and then speak. So walking a mile in their shoes. Don't ask, did you get your script? Ask privately, were you able to afford it? If not, let me talk to a social worker and we'll see if you get that medication. That's empathy. List of 9 traits of successful leadership. This came out one of our AERC leadership book club, and all of you can join that. It's free. You don't have to be the official department head. Anybody who's a respiratory therapist has the ability to be a leader. It's your choice. So this was one of the books that we had. Quite honestly, I forget which book it was. I'm not good at that, but I love the list. To be a successful leader, you have to have trust, be respected. You have to have vision and be able to communicate that vision to say, we want to be the preeminent hospital in our region. What's that mean? That's not a shared vision. When I hear this, I pull up a hospital I'm going to work with, I pull up their mission statement, and most of them are the same. To be seen as the preeminent medical center in this region. Someone even had the audacity to say the vision is to be the preeminent medical center on earth. Is that pompous? That's just ridiculous. That's no vision. That's laughable. I have no confidence in an executive who said, we want to be the preeminent. Yes, you want to be the best you can be, but come on now. How about being the best in your block, in your city? Self-confidence, have great communication skills, be enthusiastic even when things are horrible. Give feedback, ask for feedback, follow through, do what you say you're going to do, and help grow leaders. Feedback is important. I'm here to tell you I've done a pretty crappy job as a leader in a number of roles I've had where I've not asked for honest feedback from individuals. Sometimes I'm afraid of what I'll hear, and I'm disappointed in my performance in that regard. There are a lot of ways to do it. I'm not the expert. I think talking to human resources or maybe a psychologist or whatever, how can you get honest feedback? And maybe it needs to be anonymous. So if you've got that box, like I mentioned for the nurses to tell us how we doing, maybe it's a box that says, here's the lock, here's the key, staff therapist. I don't have the key. You bought the lock, you got it from maintenance. Maintenance has the key, you have a key. I don't have one. I need to know what I'm doing well and where I'm messing up the joint. You open the box. You make sure it's de-identified. You give me the list, and that's what I need to do to grow as a leader. Maybe painful, it needs to be done. Is there a definition? The skill of influencing people to enthusiastically work toward goals identified for the common good with character that inspires confidence. Again, don't memorize these quotes, but think about skill, influencing, enthusiasm, common good, character, confidence. These words keep coming up again and again and again. So here's my list. It's a list of 5. It's not based on any science. It's just based upon, I can remember a list of 5 and maybe not a list of 9 or 10. So here's what I think are categories or aspects or characteristics that help me examine my current performance and how I could be better. So let's look at leadership versus management. Warren Bennis, a well-known author in leadership, says managers do the right thing, managers do things right, leaders do the right thing. I have heard this quoted, and on leadership and the talking heads on the tube, everyone uses this quote. I don't think it's that simple. They're a part of our responsibilities as managers. Managers meaning generic. As a staff therapist or a team leader, department head, I need to manage a process. Maybe it's a ventilator liberation process. We need to do it right. That's the technical aspect of it. Leaders do the right thing. I don't think it's that simple. It's cute. It fits on the back of a cereal box. But here is something I pulled out of another publication. I'm not going to read all of these, but leading is different. It's more visionary. It's a way to create value, influence, and just take those first three words. So the leader creates the vision and strategy. The management aspect of that is managing policies and procedures, both necessary. And I'll just say my personal opinion is some feel that leadership is a bigger thing, is a better thing, it's more important, it shows how valuable are to the organization over management. I don't have that opinion. I think there are discrete skills and tasks and competencies for each of these. But as a department head, I need to manage our supplies, our labor, our capital equipment, our stocking, our inventory, our turns, all of that. I also need to be a leader. One is not more important, they're just different. And in this Venn diagram, which means there's overlapping circles, there are things: accomplish a goal, explain the vision, organization figureheads, and that's not meant to be a bad word, by the way. Motivate others and mobilize resources. So if you've got a consultant that comes in and says, we're going to change the culture of this organization, I have a tendency to run away and scream, but I'm required to sit and listen to this. We're going to change the culture of this organization. We're going to do this. That's management. That's not leadership. That's not sharing the vision. That's telling me I have now 20 more forms to fill out. I have to have these check boxes and submit monthly reports and quarter reports. Nothing wrong with that. That's management. That's not inspirational. So in my personal experience, and certainly use the Q&A to put your ideas down. What do you think is the value of leading and managing? Are they the same thing? Maybe we're just playing games with terminology. It's the same thing. So if you have some thoughts, please put them in the Q&A. So go through these categories. Skills, it's a learned or acquired ability, whether it's riding a bike or doing a budget, doing performance reviews, monthly responsibility reports, how to teach residents, fellows, how to use clinical protocols. I'm here to tell you, the best folks that have this skill are your frontline respiratory therapists. It ain't the manager, it's not the director. If you want a resident, intern, a nurse, or a fellow to understand how to utilize protocols, let the people that are doing it teach it. And it may be difficult. And if I'm a staff therapist, my boss says to me, hey, I empower you to teach all the fellows. Okay, empower me with some hours to do it as well. I can't squeeze this in between my therapy rounds. So we need to think about delegation of responsibility and the time and the resources. And this is a sore point for me as a staff therapist. It's a sore point for me as a department head or executive. It's one thing to say, I'm a great delegator. I just told you to do some of my work. But do I give you the resources to do it? Hey, create this new pathway. Great. When am I supposed to do that? On my own time? Do you give me a laptop? Do I have the resources? Do I have ability to contact other folks? So giving or delegating without giving resources is nothing more than dumping on the next person. How to orient new RT staff. I was talking to a manager a couple of Fridays ago, our leadership group in Pennsylvania, and with turnover, they said, we're spending so much time on orientation and competency testing. I went to my boss and said, I need a new position. I need a position just, and I don't mean just in our sense, solely dedicated to orientation and competency testing. And the boss said, you're right, let's go on HR. It might be a battle, they got it. And this isn't a big hospital. This is a 350 bed hospital that didn't have a dedicated position. leadership saw, meaning human resources and medical leadership, administrative leadership, saw that this was a valuable position. These are the times, tough as they are, to have that curiosity. What would it look like if we had a full-time person to orient, train, and competency test it, even when we're a small department with 5 days and 4 nights? These are the times to ask those questions. John Maxwell, if you Googled leadership, John Maxwell is going to be at the top of the list. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And John's written about 20 books, so it's probably a little bit more than that. But he said, if you can't influence, stop. You're not a leader. You can't command people to do it. Yes, you can. You're the president. You tell department heads, you got to cut your budget, supply budget by 5%. Where are you going? That's a command. Not influencing me. Because maybe my budget needs to be increased to provide better value. Maybe there's another budget that could be decreased by 10%. I'm not saying, I'm saying respiratory therapy should get more. I'm saying across the board, budget cut for supplies is not leadership. That's a command and control. That's not management. That's command and control. I don't think there's any place for that in hospitals today or in any business. Can I follow orders? Yes. Do I feel good about following an order that makes no sense? No. Does that make me a compliant employee, an enthusiastic employee, a visionary employee? Absolutely not. That kind of work, that kind of command and control, as I use that term, is what causes turnover, dissatisfaction, mumbling, talking to others around the corner about, man, I can't wait till he leaves, till we get back to putting patients first rather than our budgets. Example, I was talking to the person about, he said they have one surgeon orders consensus prior to Q1 hour while I wake up everybody. And he said, we did nothing to do about it. I said, well, have you sat down and talked with him? The manager. I said, no. I said, well, don't. Have one of your therapists do that. They're the ones that work with the surgeon every day. And maybe it's a therapist and nurse says, hey, can we grab a cup of coffee? We'll get you some free lousy hospital coffee. Can we talk to you about a program that uses a more effective device and protocol that would help your patients? I underline that. I don't say quite as emphatically that, but we have a protocol that has been shown to provide better outcomes that uses a different device, an OPEP device in their case. They had that discussion. The doc says, yeah, I'm fine. No one ever talked to me before. The leader is a staff therapist, that ICU therapist. The leader is that ICU nurse. The leader doesn't have to be the department head. And I'll suggest that effective department head leaders giving time and resources to the frontline staff will be better leaders and develop leaders within their department. I love this, Max Dupree, the author of that book I had earlier in the presentation. Leadership is serious meddling in other people's lives. And I read this and I thought, I got to put this in the slide. So here's a practical example. It's a cute quote. We all use it. Clap, that's pretty good. Max Dupree, yeah, he's one of the gurus of leadership. But what's a practical application? Do we ask staff, what's your ideal work schedule? What would it look like? What if you wanted someone, what if someone said, hey, I'd work 3 out of 4 weekends. I'd work every weekend if you could get me off Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I never thought to ask that question as a new manager. I learned it later on, actually reading Max Dupree and some other folks. Would that better staff the weekend? Do we ask what holidays are important to each staff member? And I was fortunate to work in a hospital where the person who did the schedule, I think he posted it October 1st for the entire next year. And I thought, what kind of crazy talk is this? The entire next year's schedule's up there. And then he had next to it, we had about 80 people in our department. And by seniority, the most senior person got to pick their first week of vacation, golden. You went down through the calendar and through the entire year, everybody got to pick what was available at their time based upon seniority. And I thought, this is leadership. This is allowing staff to say what's important to me. I may want to have vacation in the summer to go shore, Jersey Shore, Delaware Shore, we used to go, or maybe I wanted to in the winter to ski at Ski Round Top for a week. So everyone got their first shot. Then it went second round, third round, fourth round to eventually whoever the most senior people were out of vacation. Then that person took 2 months, because it took 2 months, to put the schedule together. That was it. Second embellishment he added to it is, hey, how about holidays? We worked every other. I think it was 3 1 year, 4 the next. And he said, tell me which holiday is most important and least important. It was interesting. A number of people said, again, Christmas is one of our holidays. I can work Christmas, but I really like New Year's off because I like the New Year's party. Some of them said, by the way, it wasn't me. I will identify my choice. But I got Christmases because the family comes in from a couple states or wherever. And that's number one. So he went back and worked the holiday schedule over. More people were satisfied, not because he was a manager, but he understands scheduling is serious meddling in other people's lives. We have lives outside of work. So let's look at the fourth area, power. Again, Q&A, any ideas you have, let me take a quick time check here. Yep, we're on track. Any ideas you have on how all of us as leaders could help us get through our day or shift or a week or a month or a year to help each other out? That's leadership. Not the department head, not the team lead, not the manager, but it's all of us. How could we help each other out by being a leader? Power. Here's one definition: the ability to force or coerce others to do your will, even if they don't want to, because of your position. What's on your badge? I'm the boss. You have to work every other weekend. You have to work every other holiday. You got an idea? Hey, keep it to yourself. That's power. In some cases, that's what we need to do. In a trauma, the person in charge says, you do this, you do this, you do this. I may not be a respiratory therapist initially. I may be helping a nurse change or help a nurse or a physician doing something non-RT. That's power. That's right in the time. But other than emergencies and things like that, I just don't think that this is the right way. John Maxwell, great leader's courage to fulfill his vision, and he uses his generically, his or her vision comes from passion, not position. I was very fortunate to have a boss who went on to become the hospital president. And I was one of 9 service line leaders. And we're walking to our service line leader meeting, and he said, Gary, I want you not to answer first. He knows me well. I tend to jump in and answer first. You probably already heard me do that yesterday. And he said, I want you to sit back and just look at the faces of the other people on the team. And we had, each of our service lines had an administrator, which I was, a doc and a nurse. And he said, 2 things. First is, I want everyone to start celebrating failures. Bit my lip. I thought, ooh, this is going to be different. In that hospital, we'd have a good project to do something well. We'd get the big cookies and soda or whatever the case might be. Along with this, before we actually drank water, we drank soda and or coffee or tea. And no one said anything. I said, I'll say Bob, not his name. Celebrate failures. How's that going down with the system CEO? He said, we're a good hospital. I think we can be better if we celebrate trying to do the right thing, even when the outcome isn't what we want it to be. And I'll tell you, we all kind of sat back and said, holy cow, this guy's a leader. Celebrating failures. When you're trying to do the right thing, not a mess up, but you try to do the right thing, it just doesn't work out. That's a leader. He didn't say it because he had it on his badge. In fact, he didn't wear a badge. He did it because he was a passionate leader. So think about that. Not the badge, not your position, but your passion. So let's look at authority. Authority is the skill of getting people to do because of your influence. I think it's a little different. It's not just the badge, but I don't think that's the whole story. Let's go back to that same boss. I remember working on a project that the positive outcome was really because of him. He asked our team, about 8 of us, to do the presentation to the higher-ups. And he stood in the back. And when people said, hey, thank you, I'll say his name is Bob, it wasn't. We're doing this, Bob said, they're the ones that did it. I helped as they needed me. That was not the case. That was not the case. He was actively involved. getting resources. He greased the wheels, gave us the credit. I promise you, if that project had turned out badly, he'd have been in front of it saying, I own this. They did their best. I failed. One of the best bosses I ever had. It's not about the badge. It's not about authority. Dwight D. Eisenhower, leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something you want done because he wants to do it. And I read this about 3 times. I thought, wait, that can't be right. I got to recheck this. This is what my former boss did. He gave us ideas and then said, hey, these are great ideas you guys came up with. And a couple of times, I said, wait, that was Bob's idea. He gave us kind of a kernel to think about. And as we developed it, it really did become ours. But he was the one that started it. So he gave us the credit, accepted the blame, that things didn't work out. Dwight Moody, person you are in the dark when nobody's looking. I used a similar quote before. Are we consistent as leaders when we're in the limelight or behind the scenes? Do we praise others in public and stab in the back when we can? I hope we don't. But maybe it's not stabbing the back. Maybe it's saying, I don't know about Bob. I don't know if he pulls his weight around here. Would you say that in front of your medical director, in front of your administrator? Or is that something that goes on walking out to the car? Character, a leader faces the music even when he doesn't like the tune. Yep, taking responsibility even though it wasn't your fault. General Norman Schwarzkopf, I heard him talk at Hershey about 15 years ago, and you certainly probably know his name, very accomplished. I think one of the failures we have is clinically is that we may know what the process is, but we don't know how to measure it, don't know how to engage other members on the team. So we're talking about engaging others to raise our visibility, our value as a team member, not ours singularly, but as a team member. So here's a practical example. What happens? You get a standing order that says, here's the customary practice, do X. Why? Because it's a standing order, or it's part of an order set, or whatever you call your organization. Do you do it because that's the order? Sometimes we do. I talked to someone, I was in Scrubs working in this department. I said, hey, that appropriate order? No way. So what are you going to do? I got to do it. I don't have time. You're going to do an inappropriate order, provide an unnecessary treatment that you know. Why don't you take that time to go talk with the doc? Hey, I don't have time for that. That's character. That's a failure of character to say, I don't have time. Now, at that minute, that staff therapist didn't have the time. What he or she said was that I can do it in 10 minutes and then maybe I'll come back to talk with the doc. I said, nope, let me do your treatment for you. You go talk to the doc. But let's practice it to make sure we're talking about what's best for the patient. So this is my list. It's not science. It's not dogma. It's what I think is a checklist that I look at. First is create the vision. If there isn't a vision, stop. My opinion, if I don't have a clear vision as a staff therapist or a team lead or a department head or an educator, an RT navigator, if I don't see the vision, if I can't close my eyes and see what's the point of doing this, what's the value, what's the big picture, it may not be a vision that's beneficial to restorative therapy. We may just work harder and to help another department do something and better patient outcomes. I'm okay with that. But personally, I think unless someone sees the bigger picture, feels good about where we're heading, it's not likely to be effective. And I don't think a leader is a leader without being able to create the vision that everyone can see. Not just a cute little phrase, but everyone can see it. And sometimes I say, taste it, smell it, whatever, but not to be cute. But unless I can close my eyes and say, I get it. I know why we're doing this. I know why we're going to implement a ventilated patient mobility program. The ventilator gets discontinued early. The tube comes out. They're out of ICU. They're out of the hospital. Does that save money? Yep. But I'm thinking about that patient with a tube in their throat. It's out earlier. So the vision is what's in it for your ultimate person, patient, most certainly, but also your department, your shift, and your individual. Set clear goals. One of the worst things that you can do that I've done is to create a process and say, this is what we're going to do. Great, let's go do it. There's the goal. January or December 31st, many people set New Year's Eve goals, many of which are gone by January and February, whatever they might be. But what's the plan? How do we communicate that? I heard a lecturer talk specifically about New Year's Eve goals and said that unless you write it down and share it with someone who will help hold you accountable, give you credit, give you feedback, it's less likely to happen. So communicate what the goal is, how you're going to measure performance. Let's say my goal is to get in better shape. Great goal. Have it every year. Good. What am I going to do January 1st? Maybe not the third helping of turkey. Now, maybe I'll still do that. And the sauerkraut and the pork. Oh, yeah, I'm going to have all that because of Pennsylvania Dutchman. But maybe the next day I've really got to hunker down and just head out the day with bran flakes and not a big lunch. It's okay to have those intermediate whoopsies, but keeping the goal in mind. So if I want to get in better shape, I can have an off day. Today's the day I'm not going to get my exercise in I normally do. Tomorrow I better double down if I'm going to maintain that goal. Set the course again. Set the course for everybody that they can clearly see the purpose, that vision, the marks along the way, milestones we call it in some people. How will I know I'm in better shape? I can ride more miles on my bicycle in a given amount of time. How do I know that? Got a little black box in my bicycle. It says, here's how far you went, here's how much time it took. So setting the course includes the metrics, the measures. The feedback is I look down and say, hey, I better pick up the pace. I need to make up for all that pork and sauerkraut yesterday. Encouragement, both internally, sometimes, and I'm going to suggest maybe this pandemic has really kicked us in the shin on this. We need a broader support team. Al talked about burnout, some rather staggering statistics. These might very well be the worst of days. In fact, I hope these are the worst of days and things are going to get better, but they might not. Maybe the pandemic and the viruses and we get booster upon booster upon booster, and all this goes away. You're still going to come in one night and say, hey, 3 people called off, let's do the best we can. So we need a team, we need to help us as a team. And PDSA or PDCA, whichever you prefer, is once you do it, check it, plan, do, study, act, and keep looking at that, because however you succeeded, maybe you can do better. Maybe you can do it quicker, maybe you can lift more weight or ride more miles a certain amount of time, or care for more patients, whatever it might be. John Maxwell said, a leader can give up anything except ultimate or final responsibility. And to me, this gets back to delegation. When I've been in a position, either as someone delegated to or I delegated to others, I messed up in both ways. My boss dumped on me a project that he didn't want to do. He said, I don't want to do it. Can you do this? You don't say no to the boss, at least at that circumstances. He didn't want to do it. I really don't do it, but I was dumped. My responsibility is to do the best I can. His responsibility ultimately is to own that. So if you delegate, whether it's a breathing treatment or mobilizing a patient or, hey, I need help in point of rehab, ultimately, as you delegate that from whatever your position in the organization is, you can't give up final responsibility. Basic of all human needs is to understand and be understood. The best way to understand is to listen before you talk. Inspiration is not about, hey, look at me. It's turning that mirror around and showing it to them. 2 quotes. Everyone wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change themselves. Even Beatles might have had that one of their songs. I'm willing to change. You go first. I'll change my shift pattern, my schedule, or what I do. You do that first, and I'll be right behind you. The only person you can change is yourself. And it's Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've not been fortunately didn't be in that groups, have shown phenomenal success, people helping people. And sometimes what we need to think about is not me, the manager, the director, delegating or telling, but getting a group and giving the time for a group of staff therapists to say, look, you guys know best. I'm the director. I don't know how things work at the bedside. You do. I'm going to give you 4 hours a week for your team over the next month to put together a new pathway or a new protocol. You know it. I'll back you up. Whatever you say we're going to do, we're going to do. Another list is 10 behaviors to avoid. Again, I don't remember the citation. I kind of cut and pasted this from a number of things to avoid. Don't think you're indispensable. No one is. You're a manager today. You're a staff therapist today. You're a CEO today. You may not be there anymore. Talking over or at others. Another thing that irritates me, and I used to do it, when I had 2 screens, I could be talking to someone and I had another screen, and I'd be looking at the other screen rather than listening to them. Shut off the second screen. That just bugs the heck out of me. When I get on a call and I see someone, because I can see if they're wearing glasses, I can see the 2 screens. He said, number one, hey, you've got 20 emails that just came up in your inbox. Shut it off. Not in those words necessarily. Unless they're good friends of mine. Focus on the individual. Let them finish your sentence. Let them have the first word. Delegating, not delegating, is as bad as delegating without the resources. Using jargon. Lord knows we use jargon. APRV, NIV, CPAP, bi-level, etc. We use it all the time within our circle. But think about being clear, not being cute. So when you're talking to a therapist, we got it. When you're talking to a nurse, it's going to be a different type of terminology. Nurses are bright, they just may not use, they don't know our terms anymore than we do. We know a lot of nursing terms. With physicians, we can't rattle off a bunch of RT-specific jargon. We've got to put it in words that they understand because they're different. Scott Reistad told a group in a leadership presentation probably 10, 15 years ago, one of the things that he struggled with is being afraid to fire people. He said, one of the biggest mistakes I did is to not fire people who needed to be fired. And I thought, you're saying this in front of, I think it was the ARC Congress. And I thought, uh-oh, that's me too. Bob just not pulling his weight. He's dumping work in his, Bob's going to come around. He's had a bad day. I know his things are bad at home. Some people need to fire themselves. Now, as a manager, you've got paperwork and forms and processes to go through. But there are some people who will eventually succeed in firing themselves. We have to help them out the door. It sounds painful, but if you're not on the team, if you're not a team member, you need to get the heck off the team. Performance reviews. This is actually a discussion for the Leadership Book Club this week. Actually, last week and this week. Is there any value in 360 performance reviews? And we're back and forth to people are talking about this. Fear of confrontation. I'm one of them. I get somebody who's just not getting it done. I really don't want to talk with them. I don't want to have to give them bring them a remediation plan or write them up. It just doesn't come natural to me. It is a weakness in me that I have a fear of confrontation. I need to overcome it. I need to get expert help, or maybe HR, behavioral health, or whatever. Fear of failing. 1,000 euphemisms for this. If we don't try, if going back to my former boss, if you don't try something because you're afraid of failing, you're going to be mediocre. Do it with the intent of safety and quality and patience foremost. If something doesn't work out according to plan, figure out why. Maybe something didn't work years ago because we didn't have enough staff, we didn't have the right equipment or devices or whatever. Let's take another look at it. Let's make sure that we have all the members on the team that need to be there. But if it doesn't work out, that's not the end of the story. It might be, this isn't just the right time to do it. Not getting buy-in. This is a tough one. I've been there both as the employee and the manager or leader, where you get the head nods. We see them on Zoom. Hey, can you guys hear? We're nodding our heads. We're giving a high five. Yeah. And then when the boss leaves, the heads stop nodding. Are you crazy? You think we can do that? We're already working 70 hours a week as a department head. You think I can do one more 360 review for a fellow manager every week? Are you crazy? So my head's still nodding, but as soon as the boss leaves, stops nodding, goes side to side. So make sure that we get buy-in before we proceed. It's okay to say, you think it's a bunch of crap and I just made it up? If so, let me know, because it might be. I might be missing something. And I started to do this with the help of a friend who's been mentoring me. And I finish each meeting. Did we do what we say we're going to do? Did I talk too much? Go ahead, let me have it. Several people said, yeah, you were talking all the time. Can't you just shut up and let us talk a little bit? And we're friends, and you can have that. If you're in a hospital environment, it might be, well, you know, yeah, you probably did talk a bit more. That's buy-in and feedback that we desperately need. I desperately need it. In fact, please share in your comments to me what I could do better for these presentations. I really appreciate it. These are concluding couple of slides. These are my learnings from the years. No one just shut up. Communication is talking plus listening, starting with listening. Work relentlessly to hire the right people. I think more people would rather work shorthanded than having somebody who's just a negative Ned on the team. I'm one of those. I'd rather work with 9 good people on a shift that I can trust than 10 with that 10th person just not being about teamwork. Get the right people on the bus and drop off the wrong people. That's actually a quote from one of these leadership gurus. Ditch your title. Yes, we have to wear name badges, identification, all that sort of thing, but don't let your badge be the reason that decisions are made. Someone said to me, hey, someone said you play favorites. You have to kind of watch that. You treat people differently. I said, yeah, nobody's the same. No two people are the same. You play favorites? Absolutely. For Sue, who hasn't missed a day at work in 3 years, do I give her a little extra nod when she says, hey, I know it's late, but could I have next Tuesday off? You're darn right I do. That's playing favorites based upon performance, enthusiasm, and teamwork. That's not saying, hey, Sue, I like Sue. I'll give her off anything she wants. For Bob, who has a propensity to be sick on a Monday and Friday, Bob comes in and says, I know it's late. Can I have next Friday off? I'm less inclined to do that. It might work out, but I'm less inclined. So just my opinion, when people say you can't treat people differently, I say no two people are alike. And give yourself a break. Effective leaders, in my opinion, use a spine or grow one. Get rid of inspection and replace it with coaching. I talked about this with the scheduling and treating people differently. Join the AERC. I hope everyone on this broadcast is an AERC member. I understand it costs $90 or $95 a year. I get that. But that's the organization without whom we're not on this presentation today. No AERC, no respiratory therapist. There's no other way to put it. Can't sugarcoat it. That's the way it is. Membership costs 26, 27 cents a day. What's a Starbucks? Or what's a pick, whatever you want, Netflix subscription. Please join the AERC. Leaders don't know everything, so ask and say, I have no clue how things work on the weekend when you guys drop from 10 at nights to 8. I have no clue. Give me some scrubs. I'm coming in on Saturday. And I bet you'll learn something. 360 reviews I talked about. And last one is secret shoppers. And have the big box folks do this. In fact, you can make money working for them. And I like to use another manager and say, hey, would you mind just coming to our staff meeting or our report and let me know what you see? Some closing thoughts. Understand your customers. Engage everybody. Hold everyone accountable for their part. Develop a people plan, just like we have a capital equipment or a schedule plan. Given every opportunity, laugh at yourself. Lord knows I give myself opportunities every day to laugh at myself. And I think it makes, I'm not speaking personally, But I think for the leader that says, you know, geez, I don't know what I was thinking. Take a moment, have fun, laugh at yourself. Share the credit, shoulder the blame, and at the end of the day, have fun. Some closing thoughts. Leadership. Ryan Holiday read this. Is it essential? Am I progressing? Why am I taking this so seriously? Am I making a positive contribution? What would less look like? So whether you're a clinical frontline therapist or a team lead or a manager, what if I didn't do that? What if we didn't do all those incentive spirometry treatments because they're not validated? What if we put a protocol in place? Less could be more. Jones Laughlin was our first speaker for Leadership Grand Rounds last January. He's written 3 or 4 books, great guy. He has this list, what needs to be done, what needs to be started, what needs to be planned, discussed, and celebrated. I've had the ability to meet with him a number of times. He lives on the other side of the state. And I said, what I need to do is I need to add to that list. And I look at this list every single morning when I get to my desk. What do I have to do today? What do I need to start? Not get done, but start what needs to be planned, discussed, and celebrated. And I've added to that my personal list, what needs to be stopped. And maybe I need to stop watching an hour of TV so I get on my exercise bicycle or read a celebratory book. This is a survey done with Executives True Leadership, and I'm going to read the whole list. But the words you see, mentoring, visionary, personal conviction, emotional intelligence, loyalty, trust, stimulating creativity, the words are the same. Leadership development on a personal level, and I'll finish up on it with this thought. Understand your skills, your knowledge, and competency, what you got today. Identify the gaps of your performance today, your skills, your knowledge, and competency, and what your goals are. Maybe I need to take a class in how to better use Excel. I do, and I am, because I'm not very good at it. What do I need to do? I need to buy that box or download that tutorial. Create a development plan. How am I going to get from here to there? If I download that tutorial and I don't look at it every other day for an hour, I'm not going to get better at Excel. Get a mentor. In terms of Excel, that mentor might be somebody who's an MBA, 22 years old, who knows this stuff like the back of her hand. I'm not, but I'm an old dog and can learn new tricks. Get feedback from those who will tell you the real deal, not what you want to hear. Never met the man, but you certainly know his legacy. We must be the change we wish to see in the world. That's leadership. And with that, I'll thank you for being a respiratory therapist. It means a lot. Thank you.